before I begin?
I think everybody is aware what is this about, yeah, the ERP analytics. So I think we can just go ahead.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'll just keep admitting people to the lobby. All right. So what we've done, as you're aware, we've installed some software called ERP Insights or ERP Analytics. And what that's doing at the moment is it's recording pretty much what everyone's doing in JD Edwards and putting that into Google Analytics. And so then what we've also done is we've written a bunch of reports over the top of that information, which will hopefully allow you to understand what your users are doing better. So you'll be able to understand what people are doing in PD, in QA, in UA. You're able to look at the programs that they're running. You can look at the application and the version that they're running. You can look at the time of day and the performance that they're receiving. So with all those pieces of information, you can start to understand your users a little bit better. What it quite often does is it allows you to test better because you know exactly what's running in production, and then you can ensure that you're testing that in your QA or your other environments. It can also allow you to ensure that your users are getting the right performance all the time. So we get to do some geographical performance investigation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the product does. What I've designed this particular training session to do, and we will hold a number of them, but this particular training session, I wanted to talk to you about the architecture and how it's put together. I've set 20 users up, so hopefully it's around about the 20 people. And if you don't have access, well, sorry, you'll just have to send your usernames via Yen because she's gatekeeping the security, and I'll be able to set you up as a user. But I've set up about 20 users so far, and some of you might be able to on your computers, log in and have a look around as I'm showing you things. And what I also want to do today is show you all of the base functionality. So show you how to export, show you how to schedule delivery of reports, and show you how to navigate around the reports that I've created for you. And the final thing I wanted to mention about today's session is that unfortunately, we've not yet been able to get the batch analytics working as yet. So I can't show you any of the batch, but we are going to cover a lot of ground, and it's probably fortunate that the batch isn't ready because once again, we are going to cover a lot today. I don't know how I'm going to handle questions. You can try and get off mute and ask me a question as we go along, and that's probably the best approach there. This was a reminder, but I've already done it, for me to record the session. So we are being recorded, so let's continue. So what we've got, so you can go to datastudio.google.com, so in any browser, and as long as you log in with the Google account that Yen asks you to create, so that's important. So you see at the top right of the screen here, so you can see here, it's Shannon Moyer at Fusion 5, because a lot of us have personal Google accounts. I've only shared these reports with you as individuals for the IBM accounts and the Heineken accounts that have been provided to me. So when you log in, when you go to datastudio.google.com, you sign in as that particular account. What you should see is when you go to shared with me, hopefully you'll see 4 reports, and hopefully you'll see 1 data source. All right. And if you don't, we're going to have to do a little bit of work there. But you should see shared with me. So that's what the screen looks like. So you'll be defaulted as recent, but you want to go to shared with me. And then, like I said, you'll have reports, you'll have data sources, and you'll have the Explorer. So that's what you should see when you log in. Today's focus, I've shared with all of you 4 reports. So we've got the Heineken JDE technical summary, the Heineken high-level JDE, the Heineken remote worker analysis, which includes user information, and finally the JDE license audit. So I've shared with you these 4 reports. They all have different purposes and they all have different screens. And you can just familiarize yourself with what you like. But of course, I'm going to run through all those now. I'm going to start by demonstrating most of the functionality on this particular report, which is the high-level JDE report, so the Heineken high-level JDE, and I will demonstrate all of the base functionality on this particular one. So what I wanted to start with, and again, I will reiterate this, but this is a good guide for me to remember, is that on every screen you have a share button at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my, so I'm on the website here. And if I go across to share, I'm an administrator, so I can do a little bit more than you guys. But the important things that you can do is schedule email delivery. So that means if you like a particular report, and this report, it loads and it chooses the last 2 weeks of data, or sorry, the last month of data, and then it compares that with the previous month. Now, because this tool has not been installed long enough at Heineken, the comparison has no data. So you see how it says no data here? That's because you've not been installed long enough. But once you've got 2 months of data, that will have a figure of whether you there are more JD Edwards apps run this month as compared with last month. Now, whatever period you choose, so I could actually choose May 17 to May 18, I could apply this filtering. So I'm only going to look for 2 days, see how it can do a comparison of the previous 2 days. So it's comparing 17 to 18, then it's comparing 15 to 16, and it's saying we had 214% more users. We used an extra 39 applications, and there were many more page views when we compared those 2 periods. So this report is smart enough just to use the date selection that you've put here and compare the previous number of days. Okay. So, but if you liked this report, then what you can do is go to the top. You can say schedule email delivery. And then you can say, you could customize the subject. You can tell what pages it's going to send. So it's going to send me all the pages of this report. You can choose which pages you want. You can choose the time, and then you can choose an occurrence. So, you can say monthly, weekly, whatever you want, or you can choose a custom cadence of receiving this information. Now, this is really handy if you don't want to always log in, and if you don't want to be prompted to go into this, into Data Studio to get the data. You can set up a bunch of schedules and you'll just get the reports automatically, and you'll be able to determine if something's going on or not. The other thing that's really handy is to download the report. What you can do is you can choose particular pages or all of the pages, and then you're able to also you can do some password protection, etc., and it just downloads the report as a PDF. So that's a nice piece of functionality there also. Okay. Some of the other things, so I've shown you this is called a filter, and this allows us to choose our date ranges. Now, when you have lots of data, you'll be able to choose months, you'll be able to choose years, you'll be able to choose days, but this allows you to determine how much data you're going to display on this report. So now I'm going to choose May 1 to May 18, and you can see in that period of time, we've had 330 distinct JD Edwards login. We've run 253 distinct JD Edwards applications, and we've loaded nearly 60,000 page views. Now, this is the summary of all the applications that have run in this period of time. Now, if I only wanted to choose production environments, what I can do is choose prod. See how I can multi-select any of these items. So now I'm only looking at the data from my production environments, because QA's been installed longer, so it's got more page views there, but I'm not selecting that. So see how I can multiple select my production environments, and now I can see in production, I've used 161 apps, 214 distinct users, 21,000 page views. And I can go across here and I can see, P4210's been run 1,500 times, and I can go through here. What you can also see is I can determine where this access has come from. So if I was to look at Australia, for example, if I click on Australia, it's only going to show you the Australian users that have logged into production environments, and we can see 70 Aussie users have loaded 7,000 pages and run 100 different applications. Now, if I wanted to look at, let's say, what accounts payable applications the Aussies are doing, we can select that quadrant, and again, we're using 1, 2, 3, 4, we're using 5 different apps. 2 users have run this, and it's only been run 5 times, and then 12 users have run PO411, and it's been run 166 times. So you can see how I can quickly sort and navigate my way around this data by quickly just choosing things that I'm interested in. If you want to reset any, see how I've just selected that, you can use the control key and choose 2 segments. So if I wanted to look at accounts payable and load and delivery, there's my accounts payable and load delivery. I've used control to select multiple segments. Now, if I want to take away all those selections, I can just hit that arrow that comes up. Now I'm looking at all of the programs. And now if I want to look at all of the regions, I can reset this. And so now I'm looking at all of the regions, all of the programs, and this is my most popular app, P4210. All right. Another way is if I wanted to look where the P4210 data is coming from, Australia, there's a bit of India, so we can see a little bit of activity around the place for sales order entry. And we also see, of course, it's only the sales management piece. I'm showing you generic controls here as well. Whenever you see 3 dots, that means that you can interact with that. So you can do sorting. So if you wanted to sort that by page views, by user counts or application IDs, you could do that. Really handy is to download CSV for Excel. So if I wanted to download that for Excel, every single graph has the capability of you doing this. And when I open that, what you'll see is all of the programs, how many page users and how many users have run that application. So it downloads into a CSV all of the data. Now you might be asked, yeah, okay, so that's cool. And I'm just saying, so that's a good example of all the controls. Again, we could choose to just look at a particular application using this object name, but we've been able to do it with our filtering on our individual graphs. From a testing perspective, this is really handy. So once again, you can see that it's remembered. So you can have report-wide controls, or you can see this is just a page level filter, and this is a report level filter. So this report has remembered that I'm only looking at production, and I'm looking from May 1 to May 18. This shows me all the applications that have been run in production during that time. Now you'll see that P4210 comes up twice. Now that comes up because it's different forms, okay? So see how the page title is different, and I'll show you how to view the individual form and version information as well. But what we can see here is this particular page title, so the customer service level inquiries, has been run 297 times. We've used 6 hours, 44 minutes. So that's the engagement time where people have been in front of that screen. So they're fairly heavily engaged with that particular screen. We've had 16 individual users in production, and on average, it's taken 1.89 seconds to load that page. So this is just the block of information here. So this is really handy. If you wanted to do testing, well, I know I have to, so if I'm looking at production, I'm looking at this time, hey, here's my top app. I've got to test this. I've got to test the domestic orders, sales order header. I've got to do post incoming payments, receipt entry. These are all my big hitters, and I can go down this list and I know exactly what I need to test based upon what's been recorded in production. Now, remember, this has only been enabled for 5 days, so you're not going to get all the information maybe you want. Now, another really cool thing is if your responsibility is procurement at Heineken, what we can do is select procurement. Okay, what do I need to test for procurement? What's running in production? Well, I can see there's 17 applications. So P4310, P43214. So we can see exactly what applications and procurement need to be tested and what are running. What you'll notice also is this particular control has optional metrics, and it's got a drill down functionality. So this is an advanced control, which a lot of these do have. So drill down, I have defined that when you choose a system code, it drills down to the program, okay? And so then what I can do is optional metrics. I can choose user count. So if I choose user count here, so now I see, so I've chosen, I'm drilled down from procurement, and now I can see P4310, it's had 26 users use that. P43214 is at 18. Oh, okay, so now I'm able to actually just filter on these particular programs, and I can see the exact version of that application that they're running just by filtering through all these controls. So it's important to note when we use the drill down and drill up controls, so that's the two arrows here, and then when we can look at the optional metrics. Another optional metric here is to view the actual application form and version. So how many application form and versions are there being used in procurement, and that's 81. All right. Now, what might make more sense for you is I'll show you another screen. When we use, there's another screen here called users, forms, and versions. And so again, see that we're using all your production environments, that's remembered. This particular screen shows you the forms and the versions, and this might start to get more important for you as well. So now what I can do is I can look at my sales management. So I'm just going to choose system code 42. Now, like I want to look at my system code 42, and then I can see all the different forms and versions that have been run and how many times they've been run, how much time people are spending on these screens on average, and then how much time cumulatively has been spent on these screens. And if I choose one that's pretty heavily used and I want to look at this particular application, now I see all the users also that have used P4310, G99, 0006, intra-company stock transfer, and I can see that 19 users, oh, actually 189 users, oh no, sorry, filtered, 19 users have used that application since, in this month. And that's a great way also for you to work out who should do your testing or who should do your training, because we can see that this particular user is viewed at 32 times this month, and this particular user 30 times. So we get a really good idea of who's using the application and how it's going for them. So again, remember that we've got here optional metrics, so we hover over that. And if we wanted to see how many users, say, are running these programs, I don't really care about time on page, and I don't care about average time on page, but I want to know how many users are using each of these programs. Wow, I get to see my form, sorry, my application, my form, my version. I see the page title. I see how often it's been run. I see how many distinct users have run that. That's great. I'm going to download that. So download that to CSV, and then I can open up and I can use that data somewhere else. Okay, so you see how I'm able to slice and dice this data. What I'm going to do now is you see the back arrow, so I'm going to reset the filtering there. What you'll also notice is when I select a particular user here, so I'll choose our busiest user so far, we can see that they log into JPDD920, so all of our controls change. They're mainly a sales user. They've used a bit of technical tools, and a bit of inventory management. We can look at our next user down the list, and we can see once again their sales. They're JPD920, so they log into a different environment. Here's the applications that they're using. So we can really quickly see, we get this overall vision of what our users are doing in terms of modules, in terms of environments, and in terms of engagement time. And we're tracking this ongoing. So this is being tracked all the time. Okay. I'm just trying to think of some of the other generic things that I was supposed to go through before. Let's look at the slideshow just to see if I've forgotten anything. So we've seen to schedule delivery of this and then to also download the report. So we've shown that. We've shown the filtering options. So we showed multiple selective filtering, so you can choose multiple browsers. I'll show you some different reports soon. I just want to make sure I'm ticking off all the basics. We did graphical filters, so that's by pressing a quadrant of the pie chart or choosing a particular record. That will generally apply filtering over all of the other graphs that you see on the form. We talked about optional metrics. So when you see the little graph sign there with the cog, that means there's optional metrics. And if you're not seeing all the data that you want to see on that screen, you might be able to choose some more. And here's an example of choosing between page load time versus page views versus the count of users that are using that particular control. Okay. We showed download to Excel. Of course, you can use Sheets if you use Sheets. I'm not sure that you do. You don't need to really worry about exploring the data, but that's pretty cool as well if you're familiar with SQL. We showed you drill up and drill down. So that's with the arrows, and that generally indicates that there's a further level of detail underneath the data, like you see here. So this one's drilling down to the applications that that particular user is using. All right. Okay, and so then here's the second report, the technical summary. So that's great. I think I've gone through all the base level of functionality. So now I can sort of just show you a few other things in here. We talked that it's got a lot of performance information, and this is pretty handy, but off the cuff, we can see that the average page load time across for the production environments for all of the data we've got is 1.89 seconds. I can tell you that that's a little bit slow based on, you know, I have this installed at 50 or 60 other clients, but we need to wait for this to settle in, and then we'll be able to get a much better picture of what's going on. And we can see that the server response time is 0.65 seconds, which is also fairly high. But again, we don't have a lot of data. What have we got? 1, 2, 3. We've only got 3 days of data here. So we've just got to wait for this cube to build a little bit more so we can make some better observations on how the performance is going. So we can see here, yeah, so similar. So, but also when we get our full month of data, we'll be able to look at particular countries. And then we say, if we just want to look at what the Indian performance in terms of the page load times, we can just choose this, and you can see it's significantly slower than the other pages, but we'll be able to drill down into that information. We'll be able to look at the download times, the server response times, and we will understand exactly what's going on with our user community. And then if we ever made a change, if we increased bandwidth, if we change to a different connection mode, we'll be able to ratify those performance changes. All right, so that's what allows us to do. Remember, I've selected India there, so I just need to reset that selection by choosing the red arrow. Once again, I got all my users. If we looked at the optional metrics here for the page load time, what we see here, on average, Firefox is 6.51 seconds. I'm telling you, I would not want to be using Firefox at Heineken. And then we see Chrome is 2.6, we see Edge is 1.94, and we can see Internet Explorer, the bottom one, is 1.54 in terms of their performance. And then if we look at the page views, we can see that Internet Explorer is used by far the most. So we've got 29,000 for Internet Explorer, we've got 11,000 for Edge, and then Chrome is down at 6,700 page views. So we get a pretty cool idea about how people are logging in, what browsers they're using, and we can also slice and dice this by system code. So if we wanted to know so I could select Internet Explorer here, and then we could see the countries that use Internet Explorer, so mainly India here and France, and then we can see what modules that the Internet Explorer users are using. Okay, so that's pretty neat. I think the only final report I was going to show you here, and it's I've got to do a little bit more work on this. It's just been I've been working on this a little bit of part-time, but this shows you what programs are used in production that haven't been used in QA in the time period that we've specified. So this is a pretty neat report. If you were doing a cadence, and like you're putting all your ESUs in, when you're heavily in testing, what we can do is we can say, hey, what gets run in production? What has been run in QA this week? Where's the gaps? What should we be testing? Should we be putting more time into testing certain things? So it's going to be a great way that we can determine our test saturation, but also the relative performance in the QA environment. So it'll tell us how fast it's performing. And then even when we do the upgrade, we'll be able to make sure that the performance is consistent. Or when we do the database upgrade, again, we'll be able to determine that that performance is consistent. All right. You can download any of these at any time. Like we said before, you could look at just your sales management and see what programs need to be tested in sales management. So what sales management programs ran in prod that haven't been run in QA? There's a great list for us to look at our testing regimes. So to leave a particular report, you've got the 3 bars, or the hamburger, I think it's sometimes called, although it's sort of a misplaced hamburger. So you go to the top there, and again, you should see under shared with me, you'll see your Heineken reports. We've just been looking at the high level JDE one for now. What we might do is look at the remote worker analysis just for a little while. Another thing I should tell you, you can't break anything, okay? So nothing, if you log in and look around, you can press buttons, you can do whatever you want. You don't, this is just going to confuse you, so you don't need that. I can see a few, I think a few of you might be on already, which is great. So you can see, because I've got administrative access, I can see a couple of people are on the screen already, which is fantastic. Only people that I assign access to can see it anyway. Now, the remote worker analysis is a really neat report as well. It just gives us a snapshot again that there's been 300 in the date range, and it defaults an auto date range of the previous month, but it just shows us 41 unique cities have logged into JD Edwards, and here's a list of all our cities here. Here's our geo map. We've got the list of cities, regions, etc. And then we've got the modules that these particular cities are logging into. So if I just wanted to see what was happening in Poland, I could check my Poland line here. I could scroll down, and they're using a lot of reserves, so they're using a lot of custom code, accounts payable, tech tools, etc. Now, of course, I could give you the users, I could give you the applications, I can give you absolutely everything that you need, but this has been defined to only give you the system codes. See how there's no additional information here? This has additional metrics, and the additional metrics here are showing us performance. So if we go back out here, and if I choose to view this map by performance, which is average page load time, we can see here that, oh boy, you wouldn't want to be, is this Indonesia or somewhere? They've got terrible performance up this end of the scale, but everyone else, China 1.34, India 3.41, 1.65 for Australia. So you get to see the average performance for each of those regions through this interactive map. The data is going to get better and better as we get more and more people to log in.
Yeah, that small one is Timor-Leste.
Ah, right. Okay, so I don't think they're getting very good performance, to be honest. So we might 22.78 seconds for a page load time. So and they're just using custom code. They haven't done a lot of activity, but it's been pretty slow.
Yeah, very small opco.
Okay, well, we can maybe help them out.
I saw some data from France, Belgium. I'm not sure. Do we have that real data?
Yes, we do have all the Krakow team, the global team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we also have a consultant sitting in Belgium.
Yeah, so I could tell you. So I've designed this particular screen potentially to answer that question. So what we could do is, if we wanted to look at the Netherlands and see who's logging in, who did you want to look at? Belgium? Yeah,
Belgium.
So if we choose Belgium, we can see the JD Edwards users. So I don't know who this user is. They didn't do much.
Thanko,
but
Thanko.
Yeah. So, but that's who's logged in from that particular region. So not a lot of activity, but that's what we've got. All right.
So this one, Shannon, this geographical, is it based on the location when the user assessing?
It's a difficult thing to explain, but it's what the browser thinks. So the browser has an IP address, and the browser thinks it's somewhere. And so that can be the proxy server, that can be many different things depending on how the person is logged in. If they're logging in from home, generally it's quite accurately to be their home. If they have to VPN to Heineken to then launch the browser, then it's probably going to be the Heineken proxy server. Like, it's really quite a complicated thing. But and people at home might use VPNs, or they might use other things, proxy servers, to confuse us as to where they are. But the best way I can explain it is it's where the browser thinks the internet it is in terms of the internet.
So Shannon, Shakti here, is this some internal feature of Google Data Studio which is being utilized to capture the locations, or
No.
this is something inbuilt?
Google Analytics. So you know how we
Google
patch the
Analytics.
tools. You know how we patch the tools release. We patch the tools release to install Google Analytics, and then so what we've done as an organization have written all these reports using Data Studio, which uses Google Analytics as a data source, because Data Studio is just it's like Power BI. All it is a like a graphical representation of information. It just but we use it to display the Google Analytics data.
Yeah. Okay.
I better add, this is extra for experts. You don't have to be able to do this. I just need to add a filter here for environment, just so that you can distinguish environments. But you can see that it's a very easy tool to use. And now I can go back to view. You'll all have that change instantly, which is really cool. But once again, now I can just choose my production environments, and then that will limit this data to only show me the activity that's occurred in production. So now I see the production access. All right. Networks, it can be interesting for some sites. It's not that interesting for you. So it shows you the first site that people were at before they got to JD Edwards. And you can see most people are using favorites where they say direct. Intranet is you will have a link on your intranet to get them there. And some other people just, they have MSN, which is pretty standard for Internet Explorer as their homepage, and then they go straight to JD Edwards. So that's what you're seeing there. So that's how people are accessing JDE. We talked a little bit about the browser performance. Here's quite a bit more detail of browser performance, which is sometimes it's quite busy because Chrome do so many versions. So Chrome goes through so many versions. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying. But if we were to just look at Internet Explorer here, so we're looking at the browser. Interestingly, 7 is the highest. That's generally because people use the, I think it's called compatibility mode. So you're not actually using version 7, but when you run JD Edwards in compatibility mode, I think the browser expresses the fact that it's running version 7, but I'm sure you're probably not. And so then we can see on average, there's been about 30,000 page views for a browser that we think is Internet Explorer version 7, and we can see that the average page load time is 1.47 seconds. So by far, it's the quickest. Oh no, it's not. So there's a few little ones out here that are quicker, but it's quite a bit quicker than the next two. The download speed is better, and the server response time. So that is the time it takes for the browser to ask the server a question, and the server says, yes, I'm ready to give you a response. The page load time is the time it takes that it sends. So the response has to go to the server responds, the server responds with all of the data, and the page is rendered. So interestingly, what we're getting is we're getting full round trip performance for the page load times, and it's unequivocal. This is exactly what the browser is telling us that full round trip is taking. So it's really good data for determining what the performance is. Okay. Again, you could choose particular regions, or so it looks like the Aussies are the ones that have got and running in the compatibility mode, because we can see that it's New South Wales and Victoria, and these ones, they have no region set. Some of the other things we can do, so this is quite cool too. So just say we saw that particular users that, actually, sorry, let me go back to this. Oops, I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to make this just got to edit the report. I need to make this a global make report level. Okay, cool. So we can go back into view. We'll go to browser performance with users. And so now what we can see is if we saw people using some sort of, so we're wondering why is someone using Cocoa as their browser. We can select that particular, so they're running Windows 10, they're using Cocoa version 86, and we can see the user that's using that. And we might say, hey, but that's not a compliant browser for our organization. And so we might want to have a word to this user and say, don't use that particular browser. We can see who's using.
Can we see the name just now? It looks like Ho Chi Minh, the Cocoa.
Don 04.
Don 04. Okay.
Yeah. So I've never heard of that browser. So that you learn something new every day. But that's being used to access your corporate assets, and you might think that's good or you might not. You can download all of those easily too. Let's have a look at what else I've got. Page views over time. This is really neat to have as well. So again, because you don't have a lot of data, it's not that meaningful. But when this is full, it's a really, really good visual of how much JD Edwards is being used in your organization. And you can also look at like the page load time over time. So if I get rid of page views and I just look at page load time, we get to see, on May the 10th, it was a little bit slow. And then we get to see, we've got consistency, the 16th, it was slow. So we're able to slice and dice this data and see if the servers are slow. So you can see generally when the page's response time is slow, the servers are responding in a very similar pattern, and this is quite common with JD Edwards. But we need more data from your site to make any good observations on exactly what's going on, and then we can look at the page download time as well. Quite often that's insignificant in the scheme of things. High latency sites might see a page load time, and so we might look at that for some of you much smaller sites. All right, but that's how to use these controls of additional data. But this will be great when you when you've got 2 months of data. The other really nice thing about this is we've used this quite heavily during COVID-19, because we can determine like week on week, month on month, whether I can just say, well, is sales consistent week on week, month on month? So I can just say, show me the sales data, and then it will plot all this month's data and last month's data quite clearly here, and I can see any lulls in the activity in my sales module, and that can be quite telling in terms of the page views. Right, so that could be a bit of a lead indicator as to demand when your interactive usage is going down. It might not be either. Again, this is time of day analysis. I'm conscious of the time. So what we're doing is we're looking at all of your data pretty much, and this is showing us when you're busy and when you're quiet. Now, if this time zone is wrong, I can probably fix it, but I think it's accurate for my time zone. And I believe when you look at it, it's going to show you graphs for your time zone, but we might need to do some fine tuning there. But this is, I can see it's quite accurate for me that, let's say 2 p.m. is your busiest time. What this also does is it maps performance versus usage. And it's a really handy view, because JD Edwards this is always the case for every site. When you've got high usage, generally you've got good performance. So you can see here that when we've got pretty much the most people, or this time we've got most people, so there's definitely an inverse relationship between the number of users and the performance that users are getting, because JD Edwards loves cache, and sometimes when you've got too many web servers, the performance is not that good. So we get a really good indication of the server performance and the page load time and the server response time due to the usage. And we can choose a particular day or more days. Oh, sorry. I thought someone was in the lobby, but no. And again, if you wanted to look at when is my procurement busy, I could just choose procurement, and then I can see, oh yeah, they like a long lunch, 12 o'clock, fair enough, and then they're busy in the afternoon. That makes sense. So we get to choose, when's load and delivery management busy, and hopefully all this data makes sense to you when they're using the systems. Okay, so some really cool handy data there. And then the final one for this is just user analysis per module. So it's just saying inventory management, 153 distinct JD users have used inventory management. They spend on average a minute on their pages. They've done 5,000 page views and 13 individual sessions. That's not quite, I'll have to look at that. I'm sure there's much more than 13 sessions. So I need to validate that. But this is a good summary of each of your modules and how much each of the modules are getting used. Okay. This is just a high level. We use this to do a bit of license checking just to make sure you're right sized. This is similar information to what you've seen in other reports. It's just called license checking. And this just goes through all of your modules. It says how many sessions, which doesn't seem to be accurate for you guys. So I need to look into that. A session is defined in Google Analytics as someone that has logged in and then has performed actions and then has not done anything for about 30 minutes and then logs in again. So it's got quite a different definition to what we might see as a session, and it may not make sense for your site, but I'll look into that data. But it is correct in saying that there's 122 users that have used sales order management in this amount of time and generated that amount of page views. All right, and there's a series of reports here. Again, if you wanted to do some sort of security matrix, if you wanted to see exactly what every single user is using, here's a grid with, I don't know, 2,800 lines of every single user and application, how many times they've run it, how much time they've spent on the screen. So we've got this total readout here. We can only look at, say, the 55s if we want to know what custom code people are running. So there you go. There's all the custom code that's running in your organization. We can see how many apps, how many users. And as we said before, we can really just download that to Excel, open it up and slice and dice it if that's what we want to do. So great reference here. Again, if you wanted to measure your testing or training, we can choose any of your environments. If we only want to know what's been going on in 55 in UA, there we can see our UA users, we can see the programs that have been running, we can see how many days, so they've used that for 2 days. It's been run 14 times or 96 times in 4 days, and on average they're spending, actually that's cumulative, how much time they've spent on the page. So really good understanding of what UA activity is going on, and that might tell you that things are being tested appropriately or whatever you need to interpret out of the data. Really handy to have. I have 13 minutes left, so I'm just going to show you one more report, and then I think I'll just open it up for any questions that you might have. This is a really nerdy sort of technical report. I really like this one. It'll take some time just to start working through it and interpreting the results. Again, it's going to look better with more data because we just don't have enough data here to see trends. But what we have is we're looking at page views, server response time, download time, and page load time. So this gives us a great idea of what's going on. The same controls where we can select our production environments or our UA environments or whatever we need to select. We can see how many sessions people have logged in. We could choose a particular browser. We've got all the filtering controls here. In general with my reports, if you see something in orange, it will be a report level filter. So you'll see that on every single screen. And when they're in gray, they'll just be page level filters. Okay. So this is a great screen for looking at, again, page views, page load time per system code. So this shows us maybe our slowest system code or our busiest. And then if we look at this, the blue line, that's the performance. So by far our slowest is an unknown system code, which is interesting. So that means we don't have a lookup code for it. It is probably Q software. But if we can add some filtering on that to only show you those applications if we want to. Here's something that shows us, yeah, so it is Q software with PY. So this actually shows us the slowest applications in terms of page load. Sorry, someone's just got noisy on me. Oh, it's Yen Yen.
Yeah, it's correct. Yes, last night we did a lot of changes in the Q software.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, we see 278 page loads.
Correct.
She's a slow one too, 10 seconds.
Yeah, good catch.
And so, but yeah, so this shows you just all your slowest applications, and then you look at, oh, it's only been loaded once. I probably don't really care that much. This one, I'd be, you know, it's average of 10 seconds, 278 page loads. And then we could look at P09219. That's pretty slow, 4-second page load for 277 times. So you're able to just look through this data. I'm not going to explain every single graph here. Some of these are really good for how many page views per session. So when people are doing, and you look at the outliers for audit purposes. So you wonder why they've logged in 44 times, or they've recorded 44 sessions in JD Edwards and only loaded 451 pages. When we go to the other end of the spectrum, and this person's logged in, you know, sessions per user, so about 5 sessions, and they've done 2,700 times. So this quite often shows me when people are sharing logins, and it can be handy for it from an audit perspective in that area. Performance per user. So this, again, this allows us, we've got the optional metrics once again, but we can see our browsers. And if you just want to look at the Internet Explorer users, we can just choose the Internet Explorer users here, and it filters all of the other, fields available to us. So in terms of Internet Explorer, we can see, and again, these dots indicate how many, the size of the dot is how often it's used. Okay. And then where, sorry, I think someone needs to go on mute. And so this shows us all of the Internet Explorer users. There's all the users that use Internet Explorer, what their average performance is, so what the average page load time is. And then it's also showing our Internet Explorer users in terms of the applications that they're using and how long those applications take to download. So this is just page download time. There's a couple of outliers here, like you'd wonder why that took 1.27 seconds to download. It's probably a massive grid, and some of these take a real long time. But in general, we have a cluster of activity here, which is not too bad. Okay, so again, you can slice and dice this data. This is really handy for working out how many concurrent users you have logged in all the time. I know that Server Manager would probably tell you you've got many more, but what we do is we take a count of distinct JD Edwards users, and that means they've been active in the last 5 minutes. And so we gather that up in an hourly bucket. So like I said, you'll probably have more with Server Manager, but this is a fairly good indication of users that are active in the system and how many concurrent users you have. We looked at some hourly graphs before. I think we showed that inverse relationship between performance and usage. So that's good. User engagement is actually, this is where I say my gold star users. So these are the people that have the most sessions, the most page views, and the most time on page. So Ready Go2 is a machine. And so they've got 40 hours of engagement in the time that we've had this system up and running. And they've loaded the most pages, and they've also been in front of their screen the most. So that's pretty impressive. And then we go down the list. And that's pretty handy when you're in production and you've got consistent loads. You'll know what your users are doing.
Ready is IBM, right?
I'd say they're a QA user because that's been in QA a lot longer. So if I say only QA, I'd say that we'll see that user. No, so they're not QA.
Can you choose a PD? We are interested in production.
Okay.
Just PD only here. Okay.
Well, you've got 4 PD environments. I've only learned that in the last couple of days.
Yeah. So who is
so
that?
it must be UA. So in terms of production, you've got SynLeso2. So nearly 26 hours, nearly way in front of everyone else.
Is he familiar? Who is Sinless? Anybody knows? No, nobody knows who is Sinless.
I can tell you what they're doing anyway, so we can go to a screen and tell us that. But that's
from Cambodia.
Oh, Cambodia. I see.
Yeah, busy, very busy.
Yeah, so he's the highest.
Yeah. So this is a
And then which all PD instance is selected, you can remove PDA, that is still pointing to QA for testing. So remove PDA. Yeah.
Okay.
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 So there are your PDs. All right. So a nice summary there. It's a nice visual summary too. Some of my clients pop this up on their help desk screens to show just the activity week on week, month on month. Really, you know, I'll leave 5 minutes for conversations. There's a bunch more reports that you can go through in your own time. But at the end of the day, hopefully you can see, oh, this is quite handy. This shows us the endpoint. So it actually has the real server name, not the canonicalized name. And it shows us the performance that each of your endpoints are receiving as well. And so this can be really handy for the CNC and management team. If we get, you know, if there's one server that's really busy and you can see this guy's doing, you know, at least twice as much work, but the average page load time is nearly twice as slow, and the page download time is twice as slow. So this gives us some good indicator, although it's QA, so it's different. But this information is really handy if you've got a server with stuck threads, or if something's gone on. This will become quite clear in this map, because we have the internal port and we have the internal host name and the relative performance that the end users are experiencing from each of those servers. Okay. Now there's so much we can do. So I give you a very limited, and this is a really quick run through. I've given you some limited reports. I still have to show you how all the batch reports work. But then, to be honest, if you have interest, you can actually, this has a very easy to use development environment, and you can create the perfect reports, the exact reports you need to extract the information or the insights that you want. So we can create really specific reports for you. And I guess I'll just open up the session for any questions, because I've only got a few minutes left.
So Shannon, is access granted to all? I created the account, but I am not able to see the reports yet.
So I sent Yen Yen the list of 20 people that I received accounts for. I don't know if you're at this, hopefully you're logged in as your Heineken or IBM account or whatever. I can see other people have access to it, because when I go into edit, I can see people are here. So obviously some people have access. So, you know, the process I went through to give access to everyone was identical for every single person. So maybe you're not on the list of 20 people, but I don't know who's talking, and I don't know if you're on that list.
Here from IBM. I shared the mail. Yen Yen, is that name included?
What is your name?
Because, maybe you didn't put yourself on. Maybe you said it's from you. Did you include yourself in the list?
Yeah, I don't see your name here. I don't see Shakti here. It's only Gopi, Isifa. Isifa is who? Divya, Gopi, Pros M, Rajesh, Aravin.
I'll show you that here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
I can show you my screen. To Yen Yen. Oh, if I can find it. Boy, how many emails?
Shakti, what is your user, your...
Yes, these are the ones.
With IBM ID, shakti.srivastav at in.ibm.com.
Srivastav, I mean, this is yours, Srivastav.
Which one?
Because here...
No, this is Shiv Priya.
This one is...
I don't see my ID is not there.
Isifa PR, it's not you. Okay.
No, that is Shiv Priya. OCC team. Yeah.
Yeah, I just cut and paste. I thought I had everyone. If I'm missing people, if I could have just a single list of extra people, that'd be great, because it's quite a bit of work for me to do this. You know, 10 different people. So if you could just give me a full list, I'll sort it out. But I thought I grabbed everyone that had sent me emails. So that's there.
Maybe is that only you missing, or if it is not, then are you able to compile, you know, whoever missing, then we do it at one go?
Yeah, then we will consolidate. I will check with development team also, and then we'll share.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? So you should have access. I recommend you all, you know, if this interests you, if this data is interesting for you, I recommend you start to have a look around. That will give you some more questions to ask. When we get the batch stuff working, I will schedule another session. So we just go through that for, you know, it may not be an hour, but you might have a few questions. And I think it's generally quite handy to just to regroup, maybe, you know, for the next 4 weeks or so. We'll just have a 1 hour session. It doesn't have to go for an hour, but you might have questions. I might show you some new reports, and I could even create reports if you want to do that, but it'll give you all a good understanding of how this works.
Yeah, so the plan is, you know, let's use this first, play with it, and then we will have another session, you know. Once you are quite familiar, then you know what to ask, yeah, then we will organize another session.
Perfect. Remember, you can't break anything, and you can copy reports and mess around with them, but I haven't given anyone permission to edit these reports, so you'd have to copy them, all right? But you can't break anything.
Hi, Shannon. I have a question. Maybe
Okay.
just a usage. Okay, so if I want to look at all the scheduler jobs performance, how would I do it using your analytics?
It'll happen, but you've got to wait for where we need a proxy server / firewall change on the deployment server for our agent to start uploading the data. And so as soon as that's done, and I believe we're in the process of getting that done, but as soon as that's done, we will get IBM to schedule the job on the deployment server, and you schedule that on a daily basis, and it will upload any jobs that occur during that day. It'll upload it to our servers, and then you'll be able to see all your batch data. But I can't demonstrate that yet because we're still waiting for a change.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No.
No?
No?
Good.
Okay.
Nope, good for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
So
let's
I'll
play.
send you. Yeah, great. I'll send you my presentation.
Yeah.
And yeah, get me a list of people that don't have access, and I'll sort that out as well. And let's get that proxy server exception done so we can start seeing our batch information.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.